Why is it that some people march steadily toward their goals, while others abandon them only days after beginning? The answer isn't luck, natural talent, or even a burst of fiery motivation. It's something quieter, tougher, and infinitely more enduring. Perseverance. The willingness to show up every single day, regardless of mood, circumstances, or the chaos life throws in your path. Consistency is difficult, yes, but that's precisely why it must be trained like a muscle, especially on the days when you least feel like doing the work. This journey isn't about chasing fleeting bursts of inspiration. It's about dismantling your excuses, overcoming the invisible walls of resistance, and forging an unshakable mindset rooted in self-discipline. If you are ready to stop starting over and finally commit, truly commit, then your transformation begins the moment you choose to keep going. Think about the difference between those who succeed and those who give up quickly. It's tempting to believe it's because the winners are smarter, more gifted, or somehow luckier. But no, the real distinction is in their consistency. Not the kind of temporary enthusiasm that fizzles out after a week, but a steady, almost unglamorous discipline that doesn't rely on how you feel in the moment. It's the ability to push forward when you're tired, bored, discouraged, or when it feels like the world itself has turned its back on you. This is the bedrock of lasting achievement. I once thought inspiration was the magic ingredient that kept people going. But inspiration is like the wind, fast to arrive, faster to leave. You can't build a future on something so unpredictable, but you can build one on daily, deliberate action. Most people start their journey with a rush of excitement. They write bold goals in crisp new notebooks and declare loudly, "I'm going to change my life." And then, inevitably, life pushes back. A cold morning makes it harder to get out of bed. A difficult meeting drains your spirit. A small rejection plants a seed of doubt. Soon the voice in your head begins to whisper that maybe you'll try again tomorrow, or next week, or when you feel ready. This isn't a reason to judge yourself. On the contrary, it's a reason to understand yourself better, to forgive the past attempts, and to build from a stronger, steadier foundation. That foundation is not, "I do this when I feel like it," but "I do this because I am committed." When you choose consistency, you begin to build something most people don't even realize they've lost: self-trust. Every time you overcome laziness, every time you keep a promise you've made to yourself, you are silently proving, again and again, that you are someone you can rely on. And once you believe that, your life changes. You no longer wait for motivation to strike. You stop depending on encouragement from others. You become the driving force in your own story. Look at the truly successful athletes, artists, entrepreneurs. Do they wake up every morning feeling a surge of passion? Of course not. They have days of frustration, fatigue, and doubt, just like you. But they still show up. They train, write, rehearse, make the calls, send the emails, day in, day out. Even when no one is watching, even when there's no applause. They understand a truth that sounds almost too simple to be powerful. Repetition creates results. At first, your actions may seem to vanish into the void, unnoticed. But think of a snowball starting to roll down a mountain. It looks small at first, but with each push, it grows, gathering mass and momentum. Consistency is that push. Without it, nothing moves. You may do something right today and see no visible change. Tomorrow it's the same. But do it again the day after, in the next week, in the next month. And one day you'll wake up and realize that you've changed, not through some dramatic overnight transformation, but through the quiet, steady reshaping of who you are. That is the kind of change that lasts. And here's the liberating truth. Consistency isn't a rare gift granted to a lucky few. It's a skill, a choice. Like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it becomes. You don't need to start with something huge. In fact, start so small that failure is almost impossible. 5 minutes of reading, 10 minutes of journaling, 1 push-up every morning. The point isn't the size of the action. It's the identity you are building. Every small, consistent act is a vote for the person you want to become. And eventually your brain starts to believe it. You'll act from that identity without even needing to force yourself. Now, don't confuse consistency with perfection. You will miss days. You will stumble. But the question isn't, will I ever fall? It's how quickly will I get back up? You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. If you are more consistent than others, you will inevitably go further. That's a promise you should make to yourself right now. Think about those times when you promised yourself that tomorrow you would begin, only to greet that tomorrow with another excuse. Too tired, too busy, not ready. Each time that happens, you don't just delay progress. You chip away at the most vital trust you will ever need, the trust you have in yourself. Discipline repairs that trust. It is the decision to keep a promise to yourself again and again until you believe, deep in your bones, that you can rely on your own word. True discipline begins small, almost unnoticeable. It's getting out of bed the moment the alarm rings instead of pressing snooze. It's making your bed in the morning, not because you must, but because you told yourself you would. It's drinking a glass of water when you wake instead of scrolling your phone. These actions might seem too trivial to matter, but each one is a declaration. I do what I say I will do. Over time, these declarations accumulate into something much bigger than habit. They form the foundation of identity. And once you begin to see yourself as a disciplined person, you stop relying on fleeting motivation. You act because that is who you are. This is the quiet strength that successful people carry with them. They don't take action because they feel like it. They act because they decided long before that they would. But discipline doesn't mean pushing yourself without joy or living under rigid self-denial. In fact, the most disciplined lives are often the most joyful because they are lived with a sense of progress and mastery. There's a deeper satisfaction in knowing that even when life is chaotic, you are in control of yourself. The more you keep your commitments, the more that inner trust grows and the more resilient you become. This resilience isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself to the world. It's the quiet, steady power that keeps you standing when everything around you is shaking. It's the flame that doesn't flicker out when motivation runs dry. The truth is, discipline is inseparable from mental strength. And mental strength isn't about never failing. It's about refusing to let failure define you. It's about falling down and standing back up without letting that fall decide the story. Each time you move forward, especially when you're tired or discouraged, you are forging armor. The more you do this, the more unshakable that armor becomes. Disciplined people don't act because conditions are perfect. They act in spite of imperfection, in spite of discomfort, in spite of fear. They have made a pact with themselves. I follow through because I chose this path, and I will keep walking it. Yet there is an invisible force that always tries to stand in your way: resistance. It's subtle and familiar, showing up not as a wall you can see, but as a whisper in your mind. Do it later. You're too tired. Start fresh tomorrow. Missing one day won't hurt. This voice appears most insistently when you are on the verge of doing something meaningful. Resistance thrives on vagueness and delay. The less clearly you define what you will do and when you will do it, the stronger its hold becomes. The first step to defeating resistance isn't to try harder, it's to become ruthlessly specific. Instead of saying, I'll exercise today, you say, I will walk for 20 minutes right after breakfast. Instead of I'll work on my project, you say, I will write 500 words from 8 to 9 in the morning. Specific commitments leave resistance no room to hide. Once you've set the terms, lower the threshold for starting. Resistance is at its peak when you're still thinking about the task. The moment you begin, its grip weakens. Tell yourself you only have to do it for 5 minutes. 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of movement. That small action is your first strike against inertia. More often than not, once you've started, momentum carries you further than you expected. Action, even in small doses, is the most effective antidote to resistance. And don't be fooled. Resistance can disguise itself as reason. It will tell you that you should wait until you feel ready, that you need more research, that you should plan a little longer before you act. But behind that logic is fear, wearing the mask of preparation. The only real cure is to begin, imperfectly, awkwardly, before you feel ready. To make this easier, study your personal resistance patterns. Notice the times of day when you're most likely to quit, the tasks that trigger your distractions, the environments that derail your focus. Write them down, then design countermeasures. If your phone pulls you into endless scrolling every morning, leave it in another room overnight. If working at home tempts you with interruptions, move to a quieter place. Every barrier you remove is one less advantage for resistance. You can also harness your emotions to your benefit. Before starting, ask yourself how you'll feel once the task is done. They understand the hard truth that the only way out is through, that comfort gained by quitting is only temporary, and that the regret of giving up will shadow them far longer than the discomfort of persevering. If you've ever looked back at an abandoned goal and felt the sting of wondering, what if I had just kept going? You already know this truth, and the beauty of persistence is that it can be rebuilt at any time. You can choose right now to be the kind of person who continues no matter what. That choice becomes easier when you shift from obsessing over outcomes to embracing the process. When you measure success only by visible results, it's easy to feel discouraged if they don't arrive quickly. But when you learn to value each action as a small victory, when the act of showing up becomes its own reward, you free yourself from the constant hunger for immediate proof. Progress often happens in the quiet, invisible spaces between milestones. Just as seeds grow in the dark before they break through the soil, much of your transformation will happen before anyone can see it. The discipline to continue without applause, without visible progress, is the discipline that eventually leads to breakthroughs so sudden they seem miraculous. Though you will know they were anything but, and yet even with a process-driven mindset, the temptation to give up will come. There will be days when everything in you whispers that it's too much, too far, too hard. These are the days that test the identity you've built. If you've trained yourself to see persistence as part of who you are, not just something you occasionally do, you will act in alignment with that identity. You will move forward not because the day feels easy, but because quitting is no longer an option you recognize. This is why the language you use with yourself matters. Stop saying, "I'll try not to quit," and start saying, "I am the kind of person who doesn't quit." Your actions will begin to match that belief, and over time, it will become unshakable. But persistence is not about pushing yourself to the brink every single day without rest. Those who endure over the long term know how to replenish themselves. They take rest seriously, not as an act of surrender, but as a strategic investment in their ability to continue. They understand that pauses are not the opposite of progress. They are part of it. Rest allows you to return with greater focus, clarity, and energy. The difference is that rest is deliberate, chosen, and temporary. It is not an escape disguised as self-care. There's a powerful confidence that comes from knowing you can pause without losing your momentum because your commitment is stronger than your temporary fatigue. To reinforce this commitment, it helps to strip away the habit of excuses. Excuses are deceptively comfortable. They cushion you from the discomfort of admitting that you are capable of more. But every time you excuse your inaction, you quietly give away control over your life. Full responsibility is not about self-blame. It's about reclaiming your power. When you stop pointing at circumstances, other people, or the past as the reason you can't move forward, you put yourself in the driver's seat. The question shifts from, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What can I do about it right now?" This mindset doesn't require ideal conditions. It thrives in imperfect ones. It doesn't wait for permission. It acts. And the moment you embrace it, you realize you've been carrying far more control over your life than you ever allowed yourself to believe. Still, even with persistence and responsibility, mastery in any area is built on repetition. Not once, not twice, but over and over until the action becomes as natural as breathing. The masters in any field aren't simply the most talented. They're the ones who practice past the point of excitement, past the point of novelty, past the point when most people stop. Repetition is the quiet architect of excellence. It rewires your mind and body until the movement, the decision, the habit is no longer something you have to force. It's simply what you do. And when that happens, the need for motivation fades because your actions are no longer dependent on feeling ready. They are part of who you are. Repetition, of course, requires patience. In the early days, it can feel like nothing is happening. You put in the work day after day, and the visible change is minimal. But what's happening beneath the surface is profound. You are strengthening neural pathways, deepening your skills, and building an unbreakable self-image. This is why boredom in the context of practice is often a good sign. It means you've moved past novelty and into the stage where real precision and mastery are forged. Those who quit here never see what they're truly capable of. Those who stay discover just how much they can refine and elevate their craft. From this moment on, tell yourself each morning, I don't need inspiration. I need action. I will show up no matter what. Because if you keep showing up, you will eventually outlast and outperform those who seem more gifted, stronger, or luckier. Life rewards not those who start, but those who stay. Procrastination, though, is always lurking. If you've ever said, I'll do it tomorrow, or I just need more time to prepare, you're not alone. This isn't laziness. It's your brain's defense mechanism against fear, uncertainty, or overwhelm. Perfectionism, too, is often just procrastination in disguise, wearing the mask of high standards. Left unchecked, these forces will quietly steal your time, your energy, and your self-confidence. Procrastination is the silent thief of success. It doesn't shout, it doesn't cause a scene, but it seeps into every small decision, whispering someday until someday never comes. You don't need more time. You need to start now with whatever you have. When something feels intimidating, your brain instinctively seeks escape, scrolling your phone, snacking, switching to easier, low-stakes tasks. This isn't because you lack discipline. It's because you haven't yet learned how to reduce resistance. Don't think about the whole task. Shrink it down to something almost laughably small. Tell yourself, I only need to do this for 5 minutes. That's it. Once you start, momentum will often carry you far beyond those 5 minutes. Motivation doesn't precede action. It follows it. Stop overthinking. Start moving. Perfectionism also plays its tricks. It convinces you not to start until you can do it perfectly. But nothing excellent is born perfect on the first try. Perfectionism is just fear pretending to be virtue. While you wait for the perfect moment, others have already started, stumbled, learned, and improved. Remember this, done is better than perfect when perfect never gets done. To dismantle procrastination, give yourself clear, non-negotiable deadlines. Without them, your brain assumes you have infinite time. Share your deadlines with someone you trust. Accountability doubles the odds you'll follow through. Control your environment too. Turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, clean your workspace, and put your phone out of reach. A decluttered space reduces mental resistance, making action easier. Use the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. For larger tasks, break them into parts that can each be started in under 2 minutes. This keeps you moving and prevents the overwhelm that feeds procrastination. And don't underestimate the people you surround yourself with. If you're always around procrastinators, their habits will seep into yours. Surround yourself with action takers, and their momentum will pull you upward. Procrastination feeds on excuses. I'm tired. I'm not ready. Next week will be better. Pause and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I start right now? Then ask, what will happen if I don't? Picture yourself a year from now, still in the same place, with the same unfulfilled dreams. Now imagine the opposite, progress, growth, confidence. Which version do you want? Every time you beat procrastination, even in a small way, you rebuild trust with yourself. That trust is invisible, but it's one of your most valuable assets. It's what allows you to say, I can rely on me. You don't need a massive, distant goal. You need a system of small, daily actions. Turn a vague wish into a concrete habit. I want to write a book becomes, I will write for 30 minutes every morning. When those actions become part of your daily rhythm, procrastination loses its grip. And yes, reward yourself. Celebrate the moments you push through resistance. A treat, a break, a kind word to yourself. These small rewards strengthen the behavior you want to repeat. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to begin and keep going. Actions become habits. Habits shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. The most powerful version of you isn't forged in easy moments. It's forged when you act in the hard ones, when procrastination and perfectionism lose their power, because you decided to move anyway. That decision to keep going changes everything. Discipline is often misunderstood, painted as something cold and joyless, as though it is a chain that restricts freedom. But if you look closer, you'll see the truth is the opposite. Discipline is not the cage, it's the key. It's the bridge between dreams and reality, forged not in a single grand act of willpower, but in small, repeated choices made day after day, especially in the moments when every part of you wants to walk away. It isn't an inborn trait possessed only by a select few. It's a habit you build brick by brick each time you choose to act regardless of your mood. Picture the relief, the satisfaction, the momentum that will follow. Your brain is wired to seek pleasure. Connect the act of working with the pleasure of completion, and you'll move forward more naturally. Even the most accomplished people battle resistance daily. The difference is that they recognize it for what it is and keep moving anyway. They don't wait for a day without resistance. They train themselves to be unbreakable by it. Over time, this daily defiance builds the truest form of freedom. Freedom from the mental walls you once thought were immovable. And perhaps the most powerful shift comes when you realize that the enemy isn't really resistance at all. It's the version of yourself that gives in to it. Every time you act despite resistance, you're not just moving toward your goal. You're becoming someone stronger. This is where systems enter the picture. Willpower is a precious but limited resource. You can't depend on it to carry you every day. Habits and systems, however, create a structure that holds you in place even when your motivation fades. A habit is a choice you once made that has now become automatic. You don't think about brushing your teeth or fastening your seatbelt. You simply do it. Imagine if the actions most important to your success felt just as natural. This is the power of a system. It takes things you should do and turns them into things that just happen. To build a system that works, start small. Pick one habit and make it non-negotiable. Once it becomes part of your daily rhythm, layer on another. Use habit stacking. Tie a new habit to something you already do without fail. After I make my morning coffee, I'll write 3 ideas in my notebook. Design your system to be resilient. If your workout plan depends on perfect weather, have an indoor alternative ready. Track your progress visibly on a calendar, in an app, or in a journal. When you see the chain of your consistency, you'll be reluctant to break it. And remember, repetition is what cements the system into your life. At first, you'll need constant reminders. After a month, it feels easier. After 3 months, you'll miss it if you skip. After a year, people will ask how you stay so consistent, and you'll realize it's no longer a struggle. It's simply who you are. A strong system gives you something even more valuable than consistency: freedom. Freedom from constant decision-making. Freedom from the exhausting daily question, should I do this today? With a system, the answer is always yes, because the action is part of the structure you built. That's why systems are not restrictive. They're liberating. They protect your goals from the whims of mood and the fluctuations of energy. They create stability, and from that stability, growth becomes inevitable. When you combine discipline, systems, and the ability to push past resistance, you become unstoppable. Not because you never feel doubt, but because you've learned not to let doubt make your decisions. And when you've trained yourself to keep going, in spite of discomfort, when you've embedded the most important actions into your daily rhythm, when you've stopped waiting for the perfect conditions and started acting in the imperfect now, that is when you begin to see the compound effect of your effort. It may not be loud or dramatic, but it is steady and it is real. This is the work that transforms you, not just into someone who achieves goals, but into someone who no longer questions whether they will. Persistence is the great equalizer. It does not care about how gifted you are at the start, how favorable your circumstances appear, or how much applause you receive when you begin. It is the quiet, unshakable choice to keep moving when the shine of novelty has worn away, when excitement has faded, and when the road ahead feels long, unremarkable, and thankless. Many people believe that those who succeed are driven by constant bursts of motivation. But the truth is that the most accomplished among us are often those who have felt the deepest fatigue, the sharpest doubt, and the strongest temptation to walk away, and still took one more step forward. The person who endures is not necessarily the fastest or the most talented. They are simply the one who decides over and over again that they will not quit. Every time you keep going when you could have stopped, you plant the seed of resilience. Over time, that seed becomes a towering strength that nothing external can shake. To live this way, you must change the way you frame the challenges you face. Most people retreat when the path becomes steep, convincing themselves they will resume when it flattens out. But life rarely offers easier paths to those who wait. The ones who truly make progress keep walking even when the incline burns their legs, when the air feels thin, when each step demands more than they think they can give. And perhaps the most underrated force in sustaining this journey is the environment you place yourself in. Your surroundings, both physical and social, act like the current in a river, either carrying you toward your goals or pulling you further away. You can be the strongest swimmer in the world, but if you spend your days in an environment of distraction, negativity, or apathy, you will always be fighting upstream. This is why the most consistent, successful people design their environments with intention. They remove temptations instead of relying on willpower to resist them. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, inspire them, and quietly raise the standard for what is possible. They control the inputs, the media they consume, the conversations they engage in, knowing these shape their thoughts as surely as their daily actions do. When you align your environment with your identity and your goals, progress becomes the default rather than the exception. A tidy, organized space invites focus. A network of committed peers fuels persistence. Carefully chosen inputs, books, podcasts, ideas, shape a mindset that is resilient and forward-moving. In this kind of environment, you don't have to summon extraordinary discipline every day because much of the resistance has been removed. You've tilted the playing field in your favor. Ultimately, the foundation of any meaningful change is mindset. Not the vague, just think positive kind of mindset, but the deep, steady belief that your actions matter, that you have the power to direct your life, and that no setback is final unless you stop moving. A powerful mindset doesn't deny difficulty. It acknowledges it and chooses to act anyway. It doesn't wait to feel ready. It knows readiness is built through doing. It doesn't ask for certainty before starting. It creates certainty by showing up over and over again. And when you combine this mindset with an environment that supports you, habits that sustain you, repetition that sharpens you, and persistence that carries you through the inevitable storms, you become unstoppable in the truest sense. In the end, the formula is simple, though not easy. Start small, act daily, remove excuses, design your environment, and hold fast to your identity as someone who continues. Don't measure your progress only by the distance left to travel. Measure it by the fact that you're still moving. The results may not arrive today, tomorrow, or even next month, but they will come inevitably to the one who does not quit. And one day you'll look back on the quiet, ordinary days, the days you acted without motivation, without fanfare, and realize those were the days that changed everything. Those were the days you became the person who does not give up. Those were the days you built a life on purpose.